Oh, my dear, what a blessing to see your face. Please, come sit closer to me. I hope you can spare some time for this 77-year-old woman. There's so much buried within me, countless stories yearning to be told. Sometimes remembering brings pain, but I desperately need to unburden myself. What comfort it brings to have you here, listening to me. These years shaped who I am, broke me down, and built me up again. There were days shrouded in darkness, nights that seemed eternal. Steel yourself, my dear, for what you're about to hear isn't a tale of gentle waters. It happened on a dreary afternoon, the kind where the rain seems determined to cleanse the world. I was home alone with my siblings, as was often the case. The downpour hammered against our trailer's tin roof, and water began seeping through the corners. At just 11 years old, I scurried back and forth, positioning pans beneath the leaks while my little brothers huddled fearfully in a corner. It was then that I heard the most heart-wrenching cry from my youngest sister, Wren, barely 4 years old. The poor child trembled from the cold, her enormous eyes fixed on me as if I possessed the power to command the skies. What wounded me most deeply was my mother's absence again. She was perpetually gone. Marlo, my mother, toiled in the homes of the wealthy, washing, ironing, cooking. She would return exhausted, her eyes vacant in a way my childish mind couldn't comprehend. Now, in my twilight years, I'm beginning to understand. But on that rain-soaked afternoon, all I knew was that 5 siblings depended on me, and once more, the burden rested solely on my small shoulders. Our dwelling could scarcely be called a home. It was an aged trailer with a leaking roof that transformed into mud during heavy rainfall. We lacked electricity, relying instead on kerosene lanterns and candles. The walls had cracks that welcomed the wind, and the roof lord above, that roof was like a colander during storms. The memory remains vivid, the scent of rainwater filling pans mingled with the aroma of damp earthen odor that haunts me still. Sometimes I awaken in the night, that smell in my nostrils, cold sweat on my skin, believing I must rush to protect my siblings from the rising waters. That night, little Wren fell ill. Her temperature climbed alarmingly high, filling me with genuine terror. I was lost, utterly lost. We had no medicine, no one to offer guidance, no means to summon a doctor. And my father? Nash was merely a name, a fading memory. He vanished when I was small, abandoning my mother with a brood of children to raise. He never returned, not even to confirm whether we lived or perished. I remained awake through the night, giving Wren cool cloth baths to combat the fever, as a neighbor had once instructed. I prayed silently, beseeching every saint to spare my little sister. The others, innocent souls, slept huddled together, unaware of the gravity of our situation. As dawn broke, Mother arrived. She explained she'd remained at her employer's home because of the storm. When I showed her Wren burning with fever, it was the only occasion I witnessed my mother truly frantic. She gathered the child in her arms, wrapped her in a threadbare cloth, and dashed toward town. In those days, we lived in a small settlement about 3 miles from the nearest town. Transportation was non-existent. Everything required walking. I stayed behind, caring for the others, my heart suspended in fear, awaiting news. That day stretched into eternity. Only as dusk approached did Mother return alone. When I inquired about Wren, she averted her gaze and said she'd left her at the hospital. Something in her manner struck me as peculiar, something an 11-year-old might miss, but that embedded itself in my memory. Days passed without Wren's return. Mother insisted she remained hospitalized, improving but requiring continued care. After a fortnight, she finally revealed the truth. Wren had gone to live with a family better equipped to care for her than we were. It felt as though the world had collapsed upon me. How could this be? My little sister, whom I'd rocked to sleep each night, bathed with my own hands, whose curly locks I'd lovingly combed, given away like an unwanted pet we could no longer afford to keep? My dear, today at 77, I still carry the agony of that moment. It was the first profound wound to my soul, a wound that never properly healed. I wept until I thought my very being would wither away. I demanded to know how Mother could do such a thing, and she only replied, "One day you'll understand, Harlow." I couldn't fathom how a mother could relinquish her child, how she could separate siblings, and why Wren in particular. Was it her beauty, those expressive eyes and doll-like curls? Had someone of means become enchanted with her and offered payment? Oh, my dear, I spent countless years tormented by these questions, years seeking answers that never came. Mother retreated into herself afterward, never again speaking of Wren. It was as if she'd never existed. But I couldn't forget, couldn't possibly forget. Each night before closing my eyes, I prayed for her wherever she might be. I imagined her life, wondered if she was well fed, if she knew affection. Were her new guardians kind? Did they speak to her about us? Or heaven forbid they told her we had died? Or worse still, that we no longer wanted her? This thought tortured me endlessly. Years flowed onward, and life remained challenging as always. Mother continued working in wealthy households while I tended to my siblings. Childhood eluded me entirely. Before I realized it, I had become a woman with calloused hands and a heart riddled with scars. Yet despite the hardships, I nurtured a dream, a life's mission, to find my sister Wren, to discover what had become of her, to look into her eyes and tell her I had never forgotten her, that I had always loved her, that I never abandoned her. You know, my dear, certain pains become our constant companions. They don't vanish, but we grow stronger beneath their weight. This was my experience. I matured into a resilient, determined woman. I raised my siblings as best I could, and when they reached a certain age, I began my search. It wasn't simple. In those days, we lacked the internet, mobile phones, all these modern resources you enjoy. Everything depended on conversation, gathering information piece by piece, seeking assistance from acquaintances. One Sunday, while praying in church as was my custom, I overheard two ladies discussing a young woman named Skylar, the adopted daughter of an affluent family from the neighboring town. Something within me stirred to life. I cannot explain it adequately, but I sensed she might be my Wren. Ah, my dear, how our hearts possess knowledge beyond explanation, guiding us when we least expect it. You who listen to my painful tale, if you harbor a dream, a hope, hold fast to it. Life treats us harshly, but always leaves a sliver of light to guide our path. It was this faint illumination I followed throughout the years, searching for my lost sister. Isn't it curious? The more I share this story, the more clearly I see how it has shaped my identity. Every choice I made, every path I walked, always with her in mind, with Wren in mind. As if part of me remained fixed on that rainy day, that fever, that farewell I didn't recognize as final. Perhaps that's why I sit here today, sharing all this with you. Some stories demand telling, some secrets need exposure not to generate further pain, but to heal ancient wounds that never properly closed. If you remain with me until the conclusion of this tale, you have my deepest gratitude. It's rare for a 77-year-old woman to express what she's harbored for a lifetime. And believe me, there remains much to tell, so much more. The morning after Wren fell ill, I showed Mother her burning with fever, and it was the only time I saw my mother truly desperate. She took the girl in her arms, wrapped her in an old cloth, and ran toward town. We lived in a small place about 3 miles from the nearest town. There was no transportation, everything was on foot. I stayed home with the others, my heart in my hand, waiting for news. The day stretched endlessly. Only at dusk did Mother return alone. When I asked about Wren, she avoided my gaze and said she'd left her at the hospital. Something in her manner seemed strange, something an 11-year-old might not notice, but that branded itself into my memory. Days passed without Wren's return. Mother claimed she remained hospitalized, improving but requiring continued care. After 2 weeks, she finally confessed. Wren had gone to live with a family better equipped to care for her than we were. The world seemed to collapse around me. How? My little sister, whom I'd rocked to sleep each night, bathed with my own hands, whose curly hair I'd lovingly combed given away like an unwanted pet. At 77, I still feel the anguish of that day. It was the first profound wound to my soul, a wound that never properly mended. I wept until I thought my very essence would dry up. I demanded to know how Mother could do this, and she only answered, One day you'll understand, Harlow. I couldn't comprehend how a mother could surrender her child, separate siblings, and why Wren of all people. Was it her beauty, those expressive eyes and doll-like curls? Had someone of means become enchanted with her and offered payment? Years continued their march, and life remained challenging. Mother worked in wealthy households while I cared for my siblings. I had no childhood, no adolescence. Before I knew it, I had become a woman with calloused hands and a heart laden with scars. Viewed from a distance, life might seem only sorrow. But that's untrue. We experienced moments of joy as well. On nights when the moon hung full and the rain held back, we'd gather on the porch. I'd build a small fire pit, roast corn on the cob, and we'd share stories Grandmother had taught us. It wasn't much. It was humble, but it belonged to us. My younger brothers grew into men. Sawyer, 1 year my junior, began working at the ranch. Next came Beckett, always quiet and observant. Then the twins, Archer and Atlas, so identical that only I could reliably distinguish them. Finally Piper, my only sister after Wren's departure. Piper was Mother's mirror image, same eyes, same gait. Upon reaching the park, we sat on a bench beneath a leafy tree. It was a glorious spring day, sunlight filtering through foliage, creating intricate patterns of light and shadow on the ground. "So," Skylar finally asked, her voice quivering with anticipation, "did you discover anything about me?" I looked directly into her eyes, the same expressive eyes that had gazed at me with fear and trust during that long-ago stormy night. "Miss Schuyler, what I'm about to share is difficult. I ask that you listen completely before drawing conclusions." She nodded tensely. "Your birth name is indeed Wren Quinn. You were born in Willow Creek in March 1942. Your mother was Marlo Quinn, a domestic worker employed by various households in town. Your father, Nash Quinn, abandoned the family when you were very young." Skylar listened intently, absorbing every word without interruption. "You had 6 siblings: Sawyer, Beckett, Archer, Atlas, Piper." Her expression transformed from shock to confusion to disbelief. What are you saying?" "My name is Harlow Quinn. I am your elder sister. I cared for you when our mother worked." She rose abruptly, stepping backward. "Is this some cruel joke? Why would you say such things?" I retrieved from my bag the documents Beckett had sent and extended the birth certificate. "Here, Wren Quinn, born the 12th of March, 1942, daughter of Marlo and Nash Quinn." She accepted the paper with trembling hands, examining every detail. Then I showed her the aged photograph, yellowed with Timur family gathered before the trailer, Mother seated on a makeshift bench, Wren in her arms, me beside her, our other siblings surrounding us. "Is that me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes, you were only months old in this image. And that's me at 11 years old." She studied me, then the girl in the photograph, connecting the resemblance that even time couldn't erase. How did I end up with the Montgomerys?" I recounted everything: the stormy night, the raging fever, the journey to the hospital, our mother's impossible decision. I explained how I had searched for her over years, how she remained constantly in my thoughts, how I wondered about her welfare. Skylar wept now, silent tears streaming down her face. "Why tell me this now? Why seek employment in this house? Was it all an elaborate scheme to take me away from them?" I shook my head emphatically. "No, Wren Skylar, no. I didn't come to take you from anything. I came to confirm your well-being, your happiness. When I learned of your engagement, I believed perhaps you should know the truth. But I hadn't planned to reveal myself this way. It only happened because you yourself sought your origins." She appeared to be waging an internal battle, processing everything, attempting to reconcile her known life with this new reality. "I have one final piece of evidence," I said, removing the knitted booty from my bag. "Our grandmother made this for your birth. You outgrew it quickly, but Mother preserved it. After her death, I kept it." Skylar took the booty, examining it as if it were an artifact from another world. Perhaps for her, it was. "I don't remember any of this," she finally said, her voice subdued. "I don't remember you, our mother, The house, nothing. You were very young, only 4 years old. Memories naturally fade at that age. We sat silently for several minutes, heavy silence laden with unspoken emotions and unanswered questions. "What do you want from me, Harlow?" she eventually asked. "Nothing," I answered truthfully. "I want nothing from you. I didn't come seeking money. I didn't come to remove you from your family. I didn't come to destroy what you've built. I simply believed you deserved to know the truth, deserved to know your origins." She nodded slowly. "I need time," she said. "Time to think, to process this revelation. It's overwhelming." "I understand completely. Take all the time you need." I rose from the bench, preparing to leave, to provide the space she requested. "Harlow," she called as I had taken several steps. "The others? My siblings?" I smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. "Sawyer is next oldest after me. He works at a steel mill, has married, and has 2 young children. Beckett is our family scholar, the only one who completed elementary education. He's engaged to a lovely girl from Willow Creek. The twins, Archer and Atlas, are identical. Only I can distinguish them reliably. They work as cowboys on a ranch. And Piper, youngest after you, is 18 now. She's a beautiful, gentle soul who resembles our mother greatly." Skylar listened attentively, attempting to envision these strangers who constituted her family. Perhaps someday I might meet them. My heart swelled with unexpected joy. Of course! They would welcome that tremendously, especially Piper, who has always longed for a sister's companionship. We parted with an awkward gesture, neither knowing precisely how to navigate this unusual circumstance. I promised to respect her need for space. "No pressure," I assured her. I expressed my availability whenever she wished to talk further, ask questions, or learn more about her biological family. I returned to the estate with conflicted emotions, relief at having finally revealed the truth and fulfilled the promise made years ago. Apprehension regarding Skylar's reaction once the initial shock subsided, and a glimmer of hope, small but persistent, that perhaps we might somehow rebuild our fractured connection. In subsequent days, I didn't see Skylar. According to staff gossip, she had gone to an aunt's residence for rest before the wedding. I imagined she needed distance from the estate, from Dr. Sterling and Mrs. Vivienne, to process her discoveries. I resumed my routine, assisting Mr. Augustine in the kitchen, continuing wedding preparations which proceeded unabated. Days crawled by. Each time the kitchen door opened, my heart leapt, hoping to see her. It never was. 1 week passed, then 2. The wedding approached rapidly, just a week away now. Suppliers arrived continuously, the garden underwent decoration, and preparation stress permeated the household. On a rainy afternoon, reminiscent of that fateful night years ago, the kitchen door opened and she entered. She came alone, wearing a simple dress, her hair loose, face bare of cosmetics. She appeared younger this way, more like the Wren in my memory. "May we talk?" she asked. "Mr." Augustine glanced between us, sensing the tension, and discreetly departed, claiming he needed to inspect something in the barn. "Of course," I replied, drying my hands on my apron. She approached, stopping short of me. "I've spent these weeks contemplating everything you told me," she said. I nodded, waiting, my heart in my throat. Initially, I refused to believe it. "I thought perhaps you sought money or fame. I don't know." But the more I examined that photograph, that booty, the more I recognized the truth. She inhaled deeply before continuing. "I confronted them, the Montgomerys. They confirmed everything. They described finding me, falling in love immediately, how your mother agreed to give me to them. It was difficult for them too, Harlow. They love me profoundly, always have." She nodded. I know, and I love them equally. I cannot imagine life without them. They are my parents in every meaningful sense." I swallowed painfully, trying to conceal the hurt her words inflicted. "I understand completely. You're absolutely right. They raised you, provided everything. They are your family. I have no desire to diminish that. But," she continued, stepping closer, That doesn't negate that you are also my family, you and the others, my blood siblings. Tears welled in my eyes unbidden. The wedding proceeds as planned, she said. I love Hudson deeply and want our life together, but I would like your presence, not as staff but as a guest, as my sister. I could only nod affirmatively as tears flowed freely. And afterward, she continued, when we return from our honeymoon, I wish to visit Willow Creek, to meet the others, to see my birthplace. Would you accompany me? Of course, I finally managed. They'll be overjoyed, deeply moved. To my astonishment, she approached and embraced me. An awkward embrace initially, which gradually transformed into something more natural, more genuine. It marked the first time I had held my little sister in over 2 decades. I sensed something special about you from our first meeting, she whispered, as if my heart recognized you when my mind couldn't. We remained thus for several minutes, embracing, reuniting fragments of a long-shattered story. What should I call you? I asked when we separated. Wren or Skylar? She smiled genuinely, her first since our reconnection. To the world, I am Skylar Montgomery, soon to be Skylar Blackwell after marriage. But for you, for our siblings, for our family, I can also be Wren Quinn. After all, they represent 2 aspects of my complete self. In that moment, I felt a cycle completing itself. The girl wrenched from our family was somehow returning. Not as I had imagined throughout these years, but in a new, unexpected, equally valuable manner. I must go, she said after further conversation. I have a dress fitting shortly, but we'll speak again, yes? Yes, I'll be here. She departed as she had arrived, leaving behind her perfume's delicate aroma and a lightness I hadn't experienced in decades. The wedding day arrived more rapidly than anticipated. I woke early, heart brimming with emotion. As Skylar had promised, I wasn't working that day. I was a guest. Naturally, I still felt out of place, a domestic worker among society's elite. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that my little sister had welcomed me into her life. I wore my only fine dress, light blue, purchased specifically for this occasion, and arranged my hair as elegantly as possible. Other staff members regarded me curiously, not comprehending why I had received an invitation. The church decoration was breathtaking white, flowers everywhere, silk ribbons, scented candles. Well-dressed guests chatted animatedly while awaiting the ceremony. I sat discreetly in one of the last pews, wishing to avoid attention. Dr. Sterling and Mrs. Vivian entered and occupied the front row. I observed them from a distance with mixed emotions. For many years, I had harbored anger toward them for taking Wren, but now, witnessing how well they had cared for her, how deeply they loved her, I could no longer feel that anger-only gratitude for giving my sister a life I could never have provided. Music commenced, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. There she stood, Skylar, my Wren, resplendent in a wedding gown straight from a fairy tale, walking slowly down the center aisle, arm in arm with Dr. Sterling, a nervous smile gracing her lips. As she passed me, our eyes connected momentarily. She offered a different smile, deeper, expressing countless things words couldn't convey. I returned it tearfully, experiencing a happiness too vast for my chest to contain. The ceremony unfolded beautifully, as everything in Skylar's life seemed to. When she and Hudson exchanged vows, I felt one chapter closing as another began. Perhaps that truly described the situation, concluding the tale of a girl taken from her family, beginning the story of a woman building bridges between her 2 worlds. At the reception in the estate gardens, I maintained distance, observing from afar. Skylar busied herself greeting hundreds of guests, dancing with her husband, savoring her moment. I had no wish to intrude. I prepared to depart when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was her. Somehow, she had escaped her admirers briefly. "Were you leaving without farewell?" she asked with mock indignation. "I didn't want to intrude on your special day," I explained. Being permitted to attend was already an extraordinary gift. "Tomorrow I leave for Santorini, Greece," she said. "Our honeymoon will last a month. Upon returning, I'll visit Willow Creek as promised. We can arrange it." "Of course," I replied, heart overflowing with joy. "I'll prepare everything." She embraced me again, briefly but meaningfully, before returning to her guests and fairy tale existence. I returned to Willow Creek the following week, carrying greater hope than when I'd departed. My siblings awaited me, eager for news. I recounted everything, every detail, every word exchanged with Skylar. They listened, some tearful, especially Piper, who seemed incredulous that she would finally meet the sister about whom she'd heard so much. "Is she really coming?" she asked repeatedly. "Will she truly want to meet us?" "Yes," I assured her. "She wants that very much." The month passed slowly, each day seeming longer than its predecessor. I had resumed working for Mrs. Genevieve, who kindly welcomed me back. During days off, I prepared our home meticulously for the anticipated visit. Finally, I received Skylar's telegram. She would return from Greece the following week and planned to visit Willow Creek 10 days later. My heart raced reading those words. It was real. She hadn't forgotten or abandoned her promise. When the momentous day arrived, our modest home was immaculate as never before. Even wildflowers adorned our rustic table. All my siblings gathered: Sawyer with his wife and children, Beckett with his fiancée, the twins having left work early, and Piper having baked a simple but fragrant cake. Everyone exhibited nervousness, anticipation, emotion. We heard an automobile approaching a rarity on our dusty road and rushed to the window. A large, gleaming black car had arrived. The driver exited and opened the rear door, revealing Skylar dressed simply but elegantly, regarding our humble dwelling as if viewing a place from another realm. I went outside to welcome her, struggling to contain my emotion. "You came," was all I could say. "I promised I would," she replied, smiling. Taking her hand, I led her inside where our entire family waited. A moment of silence fell as she entered, everyone observing her, she observing everyone. Time seemed suspended. "Everyone," I finally announced. "This is Wren, our sister." Piper broke the silence, running to embrace her without regard for formality. Others followed, each hugging her, touching her, as if needing physical confirmation of her reality, her presence. The lunch that followed was modest but joyous. Skylar heard stories about our childhood, our mother, our way of life. She shared details about her upbringing in Laurelwood Heights, her education, her wedding, her Greek adventure. Two profoundly different worlds united at our table. After lunch, I showed Skylar around our surroundings. I indicated the stream where we washed clothes, the tree where we played, the field where we gathered flowers, simple places holding precious memories. What was she like? Skylar asked as we paused near the stream. "Our mother?" I inhaled deeply, feeling the question's weight. Marlo was incredibly strong. She rarely displayed emotion, typically appeared exhausted and worried. But she loved us, each of us, in her own way. She worked tirelessly, returned home drained, yet still found energy to share bedtime stories. Skylar listened attentively, attempting to construct an image of this unknown mother. Did she regret it? Giving me away? The question caught me unprepared. It was something I had contemplated countless times. I believe she regretted needing to make that choice, yes, but not the choice itself. She genuinely believed she acted in your best interest. And observing you now, the remarkable woman you've become, I think perhaps she was right, in a sense. Skylar nodded, appearing to accept this. "I'm grateful to be here," she said after a while, "to meet everyone, to know my origins. It feels as though a missing piece of myself has found its place." "We're equally grateful for your visit," I replied, holding her hand, "more than words can express." We walked back silently, each lost in contemplation. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in vibrant orange and pink hues. Upon arrival, we found the others seated on the porch, engaged in animated conversation. Sawyer played an old guitar while Beckett sang a folk song. It was a simple, familial, welcoming scene. Skylar joined them, settling on an improvised bench. I observed from a distance momentarily, absorbing the image of my complete family for the first time in countless years. The circle had finally closed. The day ended too quickly. Soon Skylar needed to return to Laurelwood Heights, to her other life. May I return? She asked during our farewell. And you all could visit me too if you wish. Of course, we chorused. The prospect of a permanent connection between our worlds exceeded our highest hopes. In subsequent months, this connection strengthened. Skylar visited regularly, sometimes alone, sometimes with Hudson, who surprisingly adapted well to our simple environment. Piper visited Laurelwood Heights occasionally and returned mesmerized by what she'd experienced. Beckett secured better employment through Hudson's connections. Our worlds blended, complemented each other, without destroying or negating either. But life, my dear, life invariably surprises us, doesn't it? Just as we believe we've found equilibrium, something occurs to alter everything again. On a stifling summer afternoon, nearly a year after our reunion, I spotted a car approaching our house. Skylar's car. She hadn't announced her visit. Typically, she sent advance notice by telegram. Something was amiss. I went outside to greet her and found her weeping. Wordlessly, I embraced her, feeling her body tremble with sobs. "What's wrong, Wren?" I asked, using the name reserved for family, the name binding our worlds. "I'm pregnant," she finally said, voice muffled against my shoulder. Initially, I failed to understand why this would distress her. After all, she had a loving marriage and stable life. A child should be a blessing. "But that's wonderful," I said, stepping back to observe her. "Why these tears?" She wiped her face, attempting to compose herself. "It's not merely that, Harlow. The doctors say there are complications, that it's a high-risk pregnancy, that I might not survive childbirth." I felt as though the ground had vanished beneath me. We had only just found her, brought her back into our lives, and now this? "Don't speak that way," I said, striving for calm. "Doctors can be mistaken. Besides, medicine has advanced tremendously. Your husband comes from wealth. You'll receive the finest care." She shook her head. "It's a rare heart condition. They claim the strain of labor could prove excessive." "Then don't proceed," I suggested impulsively. "Don't risk your life." "I've considered that," she admitted. "But I cannot. It's my child, Harlow, a part of me and Hudson. I cannot abandon it, even if that means." She couldn't complete the sentence. She didn't need to. I comprehended perfectly. The same maternal instinct that had compelled our mother to entrust her to the Montgomerys for a better life now drove Skylar to risk herself for her unborn child. "What does Hudson say?" I asked. "He's frantic. He wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, to prioritize my health. He even suggested adoption later, when we were prepared." We had our first serious disagreement. I invited her inside to discuss matters more calmly. Piper was home, and noting Skylar's condition, immediately prepared a calming herbal tea our grandmother had favored. Skylar spent the remainder of the day with us, expressing her fears, crying, occasionally laughing when we recalled lighter memories. It seemed she needed this time with her blood family to gather strength for what lay ahead. As night fell, Hudson arrived. I had never seen the young lawyer so dejected. His eyes revealed he too had been weeping. He embraced me tightly, as if I might somehow resolve the situation, banish the nightmare. "Take care of her," was all I could say. "Care for her as if your life depends on it, because for us, it does." He nodded, eyes filled with fierce determination. "I'll take her to the country's finest specialists, to Europe if necessary. I won't lose my wife." I watched the car depart, carrying my newly found sister back to her world, a world where, despite wealth and privilege, she faced the same precarious fate that our mother and countless other impoverished women confronted the risk of dying in childbirth. The following months were agonizing. Skylar sent regular letters, attempting optimism, claiming she followed every medical recommendation, that she was well. Between the lines, however, we read her fear. Hudson kept his promise. He took her to Chicago, to the Mayo Clinic. They consulted specialists. They even considered Europe, but doctors advised against extended travel in her condition. When the 9th month arrived, I received an urgent telegram from Hudson. Skylar had gone into premature labor. She was hospitalized in Laurelwood Heights. The situation was critical. Without hesitation, I boarded the first available bus, praying throughout the journey, praying not to lose again the sister I had just found. Upon reaching the hospital, I found Hudson in the waiting room, pallid and trembling. Seeing me, he rushed to embrace me. "How is she?" I asked, dreading the answer. "She's in surgery now," he replied hoarsely. "They're performing a cesarean to minimize strain, but the doctor indicated that the prognosis isn't favorable." I sat beside him, holding his hand, both silent, united by our concern and love for Skylar. Hours passed with excruciating slowness, each minute an eternity. Occasionally, a nurse would pass but offered no news, merely requesting continued patience. Finally, near dawn, the doctor appeared. His exhausted face revealed nothing as he approached. "Mr. Blackwell," he addressed Hudson, "your wife is stable. The delivery was difficult, as anticipated, but she's remarkably resilient." Hudson staggered as if his legs had weakened. "And the baby?" he asked, voice trembling. The doctor smiled for the first time. "A healthy girl, despite prematurity, small but strong, like her mother." Tears filled my eyes, tears of relief, gratitude, love. Hudson embraced me tightly, both of us weeping openly. "May I see them now?" Hudson asked. "Your wife remains under anesthesia, but you may view your daughter in the nursery. And you," he added, turning to me, "are you a relative?" "I'm her sister," I replied, feeling the word gain new significance. "You may both proceed then, but only briefly." We followed the doctor through antiseptic corridors until reaching the nursery. Through glass, we observed several incubators containing tiny infants. The doctor indicated one. "That's your daughter, Mr. Blackwell." She was minuscule, with sparse dark hair on her reddened head. Her eyes remained closed, fists clenched as if prepared to confront the world if necessary. "She's beautiful," I whispered, placing my hand against the glass, wishing I could touch her. "Yes," Hudson agreed, his face illuminated by newfound love. "She's perfect." The next morning, we finally saw Skylar. She appeared pale, with pronounced shadows beneath her eyes, fragile amid white hospital linens. But her eyes, my dear, her eyes shone with unprecedented radiance. "Harlow," she whispered upon seeing me. "You came." "Of course," I replied, carefully holding her hand as if fearing I might break her. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted but happy. So profoundly happy it seems unreal." Hudson entered shortly after, cradling a small bundle. "The baby." Gently, he placed the infant in Skylar's arms, who received her tearfully. "Look, little one," she told her daughter. "This is your Aunt Harlow. She journeyed far to meet you." I approached, examining the newborn's face. She was perfection, so small, with rosy cheeks and closed eyes. A strange sensation overcame me. It felt like reliving the past, but differently, better. "What will you name her?" I asked. Skylar and Hudson exchanged glances, suggesting prior discussion. "We thought of calling her Marlowe," Skylar said softly. "Honoring our mother. What do you think?" I couldn't restrain tears. Marlowe, my mother, who had made impossible choices, who gave away a daughter for a better life, would now be honored by that same daughter. A circle completed itself. "It's perfect," I replied, voice breaking. "Mother would be deeply honored." In subsequent days, I remained in Laurelwood Heights, helping however possible. Skylar recovered well, but needed rest. Little Marlowe, affectionately called Mari, was a peaceful baby who slept soundly and nursed eagerly. One afternoon, when Hudson had departed to address work matters, Skylar and I sat alone, admiring Mari sleeping in her crib. "Do you know what occupies my thoughts lately?" Skylar said suddenly. "That now I understand our mother better." I looked at her, surprised. "How so?" Looking at Mari, contemplating my feelings for her, I understand how difficult relinquishing a child must have been. I can only imagine she did so from love, believing it best for me. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I've always believed that too, that she made the most difficult choice a mother can face, precisely because she loved you so deeply." Skylar smiled sadly, reflectively. "Do you think she would be proud of the woman I've become?" "Without question," I replied immediately. How could she not be? You are remarkable, strong, generous. Any mother would feel pride. We sat silently for minutes, each lost in thought, connected by this deeper understanding of motherhood, sacrifice, love. Harlow, Skylar finally said, I want to ask something important. Anything? I replied. I want you as Mari's godmother. And beyond that, I want you to tell her, when she's old enough to understand, the story of our family. The story of the grandmother she never knew. The uncles who live far away. The story of our separation and reunion. Tears returned to my eyes. It seemed lately that tears were my constant companion. It would be my greatest honor, I managed to say. I'll preserve this story for her. I'll share it with every ounce of love I possess. Skylar reached for my hand. And this way, our secrets will no longer be secrets. They'll simply be our story. A tale of separation and pain, yes, but also of redemption, reunion, and love that transcended time and distance. Weeks passed, and eventually I needed to return to Willow Creek. I promised Skylar I would return soon, that I would remain present in her and Mari's life. She, in turn, promised to visit once fully recovered, to introduce little Marlowe to all her uncles. The farewell proved difficult, but different from other partings in our lives. It lacked the weight of uncertainty, the fear of permanent separation. There was certainty that we now belonged permanently in each other's lives. Years passed, and our family, once divided by fate, remained united by choice, by love, by determination not to let the past define us, but to learn from it. Mari grew healthy and intelligent, a bright girl with her mother's expressive eyes. As she matured, she began questioning how her mother and the aunt from different towns could be sisters. When she turned 7, the age I was when I began caring for my siblings, Skylar invited me to stay in Laurelwood Heights. It was time, she said, to begin sharing our story with Mari. One quiet afternoon, the three of us gathered in the garden, the child characteristically curious, watching us expectantly. Together, we began telling our Talonot completely at once, naturally, just fragments, adapted for a child's understanding. We spoke of her grandmother Marlowe, a strong woman who worked tirelessly raising her children. We explained how her mother fell ill as a small child and went to live with another family better equipped to care for her. We described how I, her aunt, always missed my little sister and finally found her as an adult. Mari listened wide-eyed, absorbing every word, every detail. Occasionally she asked questions, which we answered honestly but carefully, avoiding burdening her with truths too harsh for her age. As she grew older, we shared more, deepening the narrative, helping her understand the context, circumstances, and difficult choices made. And do you know what amazes me most? Mari never judged, never blamed the grandmother she never knew for giving away her mother, never blamed her adoptive grandparents for taking her mother. She viewed the story through a different lens, the lens of love. The love of a mother who surrenders her daughter for a better life. The love of a couple who adopts a child and raises her as their own. The love of a sister who never abandons hope of finding her lost sibling. At 15, Mari told me something unforgettable. Aunt Harlow, I consider myself fortunate. I possess 2 family histories, 2 sets of traditions. This enriches, rather than diminishes me. Such wisdom from someone so young astonished me. She had discovered beauty where many would see only tragedy. She had transformed our family's complicated story into something precious, something that added value to her life rather than diminishing it. And now, my dear, we've reached the present. I, at 77, sitting in this rocking chair, sharing this story with you. Ren Skylaris no longer with us. She passed peacefully in her sleep 5 years ago at 72, having lived a full life, a life with 2 parts that ultimately integrated into a single narrative. Mari, little Marlowe, who isn't so little anymore, is 52 today. She's a university professor, married, mother to 3 adult children, and grandmother to a 2-year-old girl named, poignantly, Ren. The circle continues. Life progresses. Stories interweave. I never married, never had my own children, but never felt lonely or incomplete. I had the family I helped raise me, siblings, their children and grandchildren, and the family I discovered after years of searching Ren, Mari, and all who followed. Ultimately, my greatest pride in this long life isn't material achievements or titles. It's fulfilling my promise, the silent vow made at Mother's grave, to find Ren and somehow reconnect our family's broken pieces. It wasn't easy. There were moments of despair, doubt, near surrender. There were countless tears. But there was also joy, reconciliation, healing, and above all, love that transcended time, distance, social differences, impossible circumstances. A love I hope continues through generations to come, transmitted through our stories, our shared memories, our bonds that, even when seemingly broken, find ways to reconnect. Do you know why I'm telling you all this today? Because I believe in stories' power. I believe that sharing our experiences, pains, and joys creates bridges connecting past to present, uniting people who never knew each other. Who would have imagined that a child's fever on a rainy night would become a narrative of hope, perseverance, and unconditional love? Ren, my little sister who became Skylar, never imagined having two families, two names, two lives that, rather than contradicting each other, would complement each other beautifully. And I, Harlow, the 11-year-old who wept for her lost sister during a storm, never imagined someday telling this story to you, closing this cycle, transforming long-kept secrets into a legacy of love and understanding. If these 77 years have taught me anything, it's that life rarely follows our plans. It surprises us, challenges us, sometimes breaks us. But if we summon the courage to face our pain, seek difficult answers, forgive, and love, despite everything, we can transform even the saddest stories into something beautiful and meaningful. Perhaps this constitutes life's true magic's capacity to reinvent itself, heal wounds, find beauty in unlikely places, unite what was separated, give meaning to the seemingly meaningless, transform painful secrets into stories of healing and redemption. Now that you know our story, I hope you cherish it. Remember it during difficult moments as evidence that no matter how dark the night, dawn inevitably arrives. Share it when appropriate so that our family's lessons might illuminate others' paths. And above all, I hope it inspires you to examine your own story, your own family secrets, not with fear or shame, but with understanding, compassion, and sincere desire to comprehend and heal. Because ultimately, my dear, our stories define us, not just the beautiful, easy parts, but also the painful, complicated aspects we might prefer to forget. Their combination makes us who we are, provides depth, connects us to one another in the great tapestry of human experience. And now, if you'll excuse me, this old woman grows weary. Storytelling requires energy, especially tales carrying such emotional weight. But I'm grateful to have shared with you, knowing somehow our family journey will continue through your memories. Thank you for listening, my dear. Thank you for the gift of your attention, your time, your compassion. May you carry the best of our story with you, and may it somehow illuminate your path. Turning 18, I secured employment in a town family's home. Mrs. Genevieve Whitaker was widowed with 2 grown children. It marked my first genuine job, complete with salary. I recall the first time I received money in my hands, entirely mine, earned through my labor. I raced home with it safely tucked in my dress pocket, bursting with pride. I could now help Mother, purchase better food for my siblings. But upon arriving home that day, I found Mother bedridden. In recent years, she had aged prematurely. The demanding work, difficult existence, and perpetual lack, these factors wear away at one's vitality. Marlo appeared 60, though she hadn't yet reached 40. "Mom," I said, displaying the money. "Look what I've brought. Now you needn't work so strenuously." She regarded me with those perpetually dull eyes and shared words I've never forgotten. "Harlow, you are the pillar of this family. You always have been, since your birth." I didn't fully grasp her meaning. A pillar supports the house, bears the weight of walls. How could I have served such a function since birth? But I refrained from asking, simply adding it to the collection of mysteries that occupied my sleepless nights. Mother's illness worsened. The town doctor, upon examining her, diagnosed pneumonia. For the impoverished, this amounted to a death sentence. Proper treatment remained beyond reach, as did the ability to isolate the afflicted in our cramped dwelling. Sawyer and I pooled our earnings to purchase the prescribed medicines, though I knew in my heart they would prove futile. One evening, when Mother experienced a brief improvement, I sat beside her bed. The others had retired for the night. Just the two of us remained, bathed in the feeble glow of the kerosene lantern. "Mom," I whispered, "please tell me what happened to Wren." She remained silent momentarily, gazing at the tin ceiling. Then, voice weakened, she began her tale. "That fevered day, I took her to the hospital, but they refused to treat her. They claimed they were at capacity, that no physician was available for children of our station." She paused, her breathing labored. "I was frantic, Harlow. Wren burned with fever, barely drawing breath. That's when I noticed a well-dressed woman at the hospital entrance. She observed Wren, those large eyes, and approached. It was Mrs. Vivienne Montgomery, wife of Dr. Sterling Montgomery, a renowned physician in town." Mother coughed a dry, painful sound. "She inquired about our situation." I explained everything. Then she cradled Wren in her arms and promised to take her inside, ensuring her husband would personally attend to the child. Mother's eyes now brimmed with tears. I waited at the hospital entrance all day. At nightfall, Mrs. Vivienne returned and reported that Wren had improved, would survive, but required extensive care. She asked how many children I had. I answered 7. She regarded me with pity and said, "You cannot adequately care for this child. Look how malnourished she appears, how fragile. The next fever might prove fatal." Mother fell silent. I wanted to scream, shake her, insist we would have found a way, that I would care for Wren, that we needed no outside assistance. But I restrained myself, allowing her to continue. Mrs. Vivienne explained that she and her husband remained childless despite years of trying, that they possessed a spacious, comfortable home with everything a child might need, that they could provide Wren with education, medical care, beautiful clothes, everything we could never offer. A profound sigh escaped her chest. She offered money, Harlow. Money that would feed you all for months. Money that could save you all. Now I wept uncontrollably. "You sold my sister?" Mother closed her eyes as if my question were a physical blow. "No, daughter. I entrusted Wren to them because I knew she would have a chance at life there, at dignity. I refused the money. I swear on your grandmother's soul. But they insisted, claiming it would help the rest of the family, so I wouldn't feel guilty, as if I had abandoned a child. I was lost, Harlow. You were all starving. Your father had vanished, and Wren had an opportunity for a better existence." In that moment, observing my mother so frail, so exhausted, lying on an improvised bed in our trailer's corner, I couldn't summon anger. Only profound sadness, a sorrow that seemed bottomless. "Do you know her whereabouts now?" Mother shook her head. Mrs. Vivienne said they planned to relocate to another town, that it would be better that way, a complete fresh start, that they would change her name to sever ties with the past, that they would raise her as their legitimate daughter, never revealing her adoption. Adopted. The word sounded peculiar, as if it represented something beautiful, something generous, rather than the reality a child torn from her family, her history, her identity. "What name did they give her?" I asked. "Skylar," Mother replied, her voice nearly inaudible. "They intended to call her Skylar." "Skylar," I repeated silently. My little sister Wren had become Skylar, a privileged girl raised by physicians, unaware of her true identity. That night, I made a silent vow. Someday I would find Wren, reveal the truth, reunite her with our family, if only for an embrace, if only for a glance. 2 months later, Mother passed away. It happened in the early morning, quietly, without commotion. When I went to rouse her, she had already grown cold. There was no wake. We lacked funds for such ceremony. The burial was modest, few neighbors, my siblings quiet, not fully comprehending the situation. Suddenly, I was all they had. At 18, I became mother to 5 children. Yet this wasn't unfamiliar territory. I had fulfilled this role for years. That day, returning from the cemetery, I gathered with my siblings before our humble trailer. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in vibrant hues. "Do you remember our sister Wren?" I asked. The twins and Piper shook their heads, having no recollection. They were too young when she left, but Sawyer and Beckett nodded affirmatively. "She didn't die," I explained. "A family from town took her. They gave her a new name, Skylar, and someday I'll find her and bring her back, if only for an embrace." My siblings' eyes sparkled with hope. In that sorrowful moment, the notion that one of us existed elsewhere, perhaps living happily, offered small comfort. That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, I stepped onto the porch and gazed at the star-filled sky. I recalled Mother teaching me the names of certain stars. "That one is the evening star," she would say, indicating a brilliant celestial body. "It's first to appear at nightfall, last to fade at dawn." Observing that star that night, I experienced an unusual tranquility, as if Mother were assuring me that despite everything, life would continue its course, that light would follow darkness. "I'll find her, Mom," I whispered skyward. "I'll find our Wren." The years flowed like river currents. You see them passing but cannot hold them in your grasp. After Mother's death, life grew even more challenging, but it also strengthened our bonds. My siblings and I were each other's only family in this vast world. Sawyer secured better employment in town at a steel mill. Beckett completed elementary school, the only one among us to advance, so Ferrand found work as a diner assistant. The twins worked at the ranch, while Piper helped me maintain our household. I continued working for Mrs. Genevieve, who proved an angel in my life. Upon learning of Mother's passing, she increased my wages and occasionally permitted me to bring Piper along. Our circumstances gradually improved. By no means was life easy, but at least hunger no longer haunted us as before. We even managed to purchase a transistor radio. Evenings found us gathered around it, listening to radio serial SAR entertainment. Yet even during joyful moments, Wren remained in my thoughts. It felt as though a piece of my heart had been excised. During rare moments of leisure, I would venture into town, inquiring about Dr. Sterling and Mrs. Vivienne, about a girl named Skylar. No one offered information. As Mother had indicated, they had relocated, vanishing without trace. At 24, my life began to shift. The year was 1965. The world had transformed, as had I. No longer that frightened girl, I had become a woman. My siblings had matured. Sawyer had married a local girl. Beckett was engaged. The twins earned respectable wages at a larger ranch. And Piper, my baby sister, had blossomed into a lovely 18-year-old. I alone remained unattached. When questioned about my lack of a husband, I always redirected the conversation. Truth be told, something within me prevented settling down. That promise made to myself as I buried Mother. To find Wren. Fate operates in curious ways. One Saturday afternoon, while purchasing fruit at the town market, I overheard a woman mentioning an elaborate celebration planned in the neighboring town. "It's to be Dr. Sterling's daughter's engagement party. They're calling it the social event of the year." My heart froze. This couldn't be coincidence. Sterling wasn't a common name. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you referring to Dr. Sterling Montgomery?" I inquired, struggling to conceal my anxiety. "Indeed," the woman replied, appearing surprised at my recognition of the name. "He's Laurelwood Heights' most esteemed physician. His daughter, Skylar, is to marry the mayor's son." Skylar, Dr. Sterling. No doubt remained. It was Hermie Wren. That night, sleep eluded me. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. What would she look like now? Would she resemble the little girl I once knew? Would she be happy? And most importantly, should I insert myself into her life after so many years? Did I possess that right? I shared everything with my siblings the following day. We spent hours debating my course of action. Sawyer advised against interference, suggesting we leave her in peace since she enjoyed a good life. Beckett argued she deserved to know the truth, that everyone has a right to their own story. The twins held differing opinions, while Piper, always the most emotional, declared she would sacrifice anything to meet the sister she never knew. Ultimately, the decision rested with me, and I determined I needed at least to see her, even from a distance. I had no intention of introducing myself or disrupting her life. I simply wanted to confirm with my own eyes that she was well, that she was happy. The party would occur in 2 weeks. I saved every penny possible, requested an advance from Mrs. Genevieve, who, bless her heart, provided the money without questioning its purpose, and purchased a simple but attractive dress from a local shop. It couldn't compare to what the wealthy would wear, but at least I wouldn't appear destitute. When the momentous day arrived, I boarded the first Trailways bus to Laurelwood Heights. The journey lasted nearly 2 hours over rough terrain that jostled us continuously. I arrived in early afternoon, my heart pounding so fiercely I feared it might escape my chest. Laurelwood Heights far exceeded our modest town in size and grandeur. It boasted paved streets, elegant shops, imposing houses with meticulously maintained gardens. I wandered briefly, inquiring about Dr. Sterling's residence. Everyone knew, naturally. It was the estate atop Evergreen Summit, commanding a view of the entire town. Upon seeing the house, my knees weakened. It was immense, pristine white, featuring large windows and a wraparound porch. The garden appeared otherworldly, filled with vibrant flowers and perfectly trimmed trees. A universe apart from our reality. The celebration would commence in late afternoon. I continued exploring the town, attempting to calm my nerves. As the sun began to set, I observed the first automobiles arriving at the estate, gleaming vehicles, elegantly attired guests, women adorned with jewelry that sparkled even from a distance. I summoned every ounce of courage and ascended the hill. I had no plan to enter. I knew I would be turned away at the door, but I wanted to position myself close enough to witness arriving guests, perhaps glimpse Skylar. I concealed myself behind a substantial tree near the gate. From this vantage point, I could observe everyone without being noticed. Minutes crawled by. More and more guests appeared, but no sign of her. Then, as darkness nearly fell, a different murmur swept through the entrance. All eyes turned toward the house. The front doors swung open, and there she stood. Merciful heaven, it was like gazing upon a ghost, yet simultaneously witnessing a dream fulfilled. Skylar was beautiful. A woman now, no longer the little girl I remembered, yet still possessing those same expressive eyes, those same curls now elegantly styled. She wore a pale blue dress that seemed to float around her as she descended the entrance steps. Beside her stood a middle-aged man, I presume to be Dr. Sterling, and an elegant woman who must have been Mrs. Vivienne. On her other side was a handsome young man, likely her fiancé. They proceeded to the garden where a small orchestra began to play. Skylar smiled, greeted guests. She appeared happy, genuinely happy. I remained motionless, transfixed, observing her little sister so near yet so distant. Worlds separated us. I'm unsure how long I stood watching. Suddenly, I realized tears streamed down my face. It was a complex emotion: joy at seeing her well, pain from our separation, anger over what had transpired, relief in knowing she lived happily. Then something extraordinary occurred. Inexplicably, Skylar halted her conversation with guests and looked in my direction. It was as if something had called to her. Our eyes met momentarily across the distance, across the years. My heart stopped. Did she recognize me? Did she sense something? Or was it mere coincidence? Before I could determine this, a security guard approached, inquiring about my presence. I claimed to be lost, seeking directions back to town. He provided instructions and watched until I began descending the hill. I'll never forget that moment, that fleeting glance. It felt as though time briefly suspended itself, reconnecting us, despite her ignorance of my identity. I returned home that very night on the final bus. My siblings awaited me, eager for news. "What is she like?" Piper asked, eyes shining. "Beautiful," I replied, "like a fairy tale princess." "Did you speak with her?" Beckett inquired. I shook my head. No, I merely observed from afar. She seemed so content, so at peace. I lacked the courage. Sawyer nodded approvingly. Better that way, Harlow. What good would disrupting her life accomplish? But that night brought no peace to my heart. Seeing Wren Schuyler only intensified my need to speak with her, to reveal the truth. Not to extract her from that life, not to request anything, but so she would know her story, her roots, her true identity. In subsequent weeks, she dominated my thoughts. I continued working, maintaining our home, assisting my siblings, but my mind remained fixed on that estate atop Evergreen Summit, with my sister who remained unaware of our connection. When I heard Dr. Sterling sought a cook to assist with wedding preparations, scheduled 3 months hence, I recognized my opportunity, my sole opportunity. I resigned from Mrs. Genevieve's employment. She expressed sadness but understood when I explained the circumstances. She even provided a letter of recommendation declaring me the finest cook ever to serve her household. An exaggeration, certainly, but I thanked her profoundly. Armed with this letter and my meager savings, I journeyed to Laurelwood Heights and presented myself at the Montgomery estate. The housekeeper, Mrs. Theodora Lancaster, a serious woman with glasses perched on her nose tip, interviewed me. I presented Mrs. Genevieve's letter, claimed experience cooking for events, a minor falsehood, and promised diligent service for as long as necessary. To my astonishment and delight, I secured the position to begin the following week. I returned home to arrange matters. My siblings expressed concern, especially Piper, who still resided with me. Harlow, are you certain about this? What if they discover your identity? They won't, I assured her, projecting more confidence than I felt. I'll be just another employee. I'll scarcely encounter the family. And if you do, what will you say? I had no answer. I hadn't planned that extensively. I simply knew I needed proximity to Wren, even if working in the kitchen, catching only glimpses. The subsequent week, I relocated to Laurelwood Heights. I was accommodated in a modest room at the estate's rear, alongside 2 other staff members, Brielle, a young maid, and Waverly, who managed laundry. My responsibility was assisting the head chef, Mr. Augustine Pierce, with wedding preparations. Daily, we tested recipes, compiled ingredient lists, planned service for hundreds of guests. During initial weeks, I rarely glimpsed Schuyler. She remained occupied with wedding arrangements, outings with her fiancé, family visits. I observed her from afar occasionally when she crossed the garden or visited the kitchen to sample dishes. Each time, my heart raced, my palms perspired, and I concentrated intensely to maintain composure. One afternoon, while alone in the kitchen preparing pie dough, the door opened. It was Schuyler herself. "Good afternoon," she greeted me with a gentle smile. "You're Mr. Augustine's new assistant, correct? Harlow, isn't it?" She knew my name. "Yes, miss," I managed to reply, struggling to control my trembling voice. "The aroma is delightful. What are you preparing? Dough for fruit pies?" Mr. Augustine wanted to experiment with different fillings for the wedding. She approached, examining the dough I needed. "It looks wonderful. Have you worked as a cook previously?" "Yes, ma'am, at Mrs. Genevieve's residence in Willow Creek." She nodded, still smiling. She remained briefly, discussing food and wedding preparations. The experience was surreal. My little sister, whom I'd rocked to sleep, now an adult woman, conversing with me as strangers, which in a sense we were. After her departure, I needed to sit. My legs had weakened. This marked the first of many brief encounters. Schuyler, unlike most privileged young women, treated staff kindly, often pausing to chat, inquiring about our well-being, expressing gratitude for our service. With each encounter, each conversation, my resolve strengthened. She deserved to know the truth, deserved to know her story, but how to convey such information? How to tell a bride-to-be that her entire existence rested upon falsehood, that her parents weren't her parents, that she had siblings she never knew, a family taken from her? Days passed without my finding courage or opportunity. Schuyler constantly had companions, friends, her mother, her fiancé. We never shared more than a few minutes alone. Approximately 1 month before the wedding, I worked late in the kitchen, cleaning after an intense day of preparations. I believed everyone else had retired. "Harlow," she entered, closing the door behind her. She appeared nervous, something I'd never observed in her before. "I need a favor," she whispered, "something I cannot ask of anyone else." My heart accelerated. What could she want? "Of course, miss. Anything you require." She inhaled deeply, as if gathering courage. "I need your help locating someone, my real parents." I felt as though I'd been struck. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. She knew. Somehow, Wren knew of her adoption. "What do you mean, miss?" I stammered, attempting to collect my thoughts. Skylar moved closer, lowering her voice further. "I discovered documents hidden in Father's office. Adoption certificate, letters. I know I'm not their biological child. I learned my birth name was Wren." "Wren." She said it, Wren. I couldn't prevent the tears welling in my eyes. I feigned something in my eye to explain them. "Why do you believe I can help?" I asked, my heart pounding so forcefully I feared she might hear it. "You come from Willow Creek, the same town mentioned in the documents. I've lived in Laurelwood Heights as long as I can remember, but according to the papers, I was born there." She stood so close to the truth. "Additionally," she continued, "there's something about you. I cannot explain it precisely. Since your arrival, I've felt a sense of familiarity. Strange, I know. It wasn't strange. It was blood speaking, the heart recognizing what the mind couldn't comprehend. Miss Schuyler, words failed me. I wanted to reveal everything immediately, but fear held me back. Fear of her reaction, fear she wouldn't believe me, fear of destroying her life. "I'm marrying in a month," she said, voice heavy with emotion. "Before that, I need to know my true identity. I cannot begin a new life carrying this uncertainty." I inhaled deeply, trying to control the emotional storm within. "Perhaps I can indeed help," I finally replied. "But I need time, a few days, to investigate matters in Willow Creek." She nodded hopefully. "I understand. How much time do you require?" "A week," I answered. "Give me a week." "That's reasonable. I'll speak with my parents, Dr. Sterling and Mrs. Viviane, so you can take leave. I'll claim it's a family matter." Family. If only she understood the word's significance in that moment. "Thank you, miss." She clasped my hands, an intimate gesture that surprised me. "No, Harlow. I thank you. I feel I can trust you despite our brief acquaintance." Curious, isn't it? I couldn't respond, merely returned her grip, feeling the connection that neither time nor distance had severed. That same night, I wrote to my siblings explaining the situation. I asked Beckett, the most educated among us, to gather documentation proving our relationship with Wren, her birth certificate, old photographs, anything available. The subsequent days were torturous. I maintained normal routines, encountering Schuyler occasionally around the estate, exchanging meaningful glances, though the meaning differed for each of us, believing I investigated her past, I knowing I was her past. Finally, after 5 days, Beckett replied. He had located Wren's birth certificate, an old family photograph with all of Usher as an infant in mother's arms, me beside them, our siblings surrounding Usand, something particularly touching. A knitted booty grandmother had crafted for her birth. Small tokens of an interrupted life, of a story demanding to be told. The evening before my day off, Schuyler returned to the kitchen, asking if I'd discovered anything. "Yes, miss," I confirmed. "But I prefer discussing it tomorrow when we have privacy. It's a delicate matter." She agreed, though impatience shone in her eyes. The next morning, I bathed thoroughly, donned my most presentable attire, still modest by that household standards, and waited in the garden as arranged. Schuyler arrived punctually, also dressed simply, as if avoiding attention. She suggested we walk to a small park near the estate, a public space where we could converse without being overheard. We walked silently for several minutes, only our footsteps audible on the stone path. I mentally rehearsed the words I'd practiced all night, but none seemed adequate for what I needed to convey. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for listening to my story today. At the age of 77, I realized that the stories we carry are not just memories, They are lessons, threads that connect the past to the present and the future. Through the story of Ren and the life of my family, I hope to convey a message. Life rarely goes according to our plans. It can thrust us into challenges that seem impossible to overcome, but if we dare to face the pain, dare to forgive, and dare to love despite everything, we can transform even the saddest stories into something meaningful and beautiful. I believe that true human strength lies in our ability to connect, in love, and in perseverance. Not every story has a perfect ending, but every story carries its own significance. If you found my story meaningful, please subscribe to the Grandparents channel so you won't miss other valuable stories. Every like and subscription helps these precious memories and lessons reach more people. I would also like to extend my special thanks to the founder of Grandparents Memories for creating a wonderful space where people like me can share the stories of our lives. Thanks to his dedication, the lessons from our generation will not be forgotten. Next week, the channel will welcome a new guest with another deeply moving story about life in the Central Region during the 1950s. Please stay tuned. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for taking the time to listen. Each of us has a story worth telling. Be brave in sharing yours, for it might become a guiding light for someone else in their darkest moments.